I honestly never could have imagined, obviously most of us don't as a younger person, what it would be like to be grandpa, but it's pretty cool, I got to tell you. Uh, So I am the true vine. There's a couple of parts of that that really, really are important that we grasp, but in particular that word true. We see there's a power in that word. We've looked over the last many weeks at the concept of I am, understanding that. We've looked at last week in particular, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And we found within that statement, within those words, we found clarity in the person, we found clarity in the direction and the example of Christ. When we look at the opening words of this passage from John 15, we see the words of Jesus. Once again, we see a reference to the truth. There's something that Jesus has us to see here. There's something He's wanting us to understand here as we pertain to what is honest, what is real, what is tangible, what can we hold on to that's absolute, that we don't have to have doubts about. Because we tend to find more and more things in this life that we have to doubt, right? We just wonder about this and that. Is this true? Is this right? Jesus says, I am the true vine. When we think about that, we immediately, just as the picture would give, we think of a vine, we think of a plant or a tree or whatever. There's a purpose for this continued single reference, I am. In other words, He's saying to us, I am the only source of what you seek. There is nowhere else. You don't have to look anywhere else. There is no variety. There is no Baskin Robbins. There's no Walmart. It's one. You don't have to go anywhere else. I am the only source of what you're seeking. How many of us seek things? We're all the time looking for answers, right? Whatever they might be, we're looking for answers. We struggle with that from time to time, but Jesus says, that's me. I can answer that for you. I can help you in that situation. He says, I am the truth. Understanding that concept and understanding the illustration we get here of the vine, we have to grasp what that actually means. What does it illustrate? Here we see both the truth and then we see our true life source. He's saying, apart from me, the detachment, if you will, leads you nowhere. How many of us believe that today? Because when we realize when we don't have a life source pouring into us, just like that vine that withers up and no longer produces anything, it just dies. There's nothing there. So we see both in this statement of I am the true vine. We see the truth and we see our life source. In other words, the gift that Jesus came to give, which was life and it what more abundantly, right? He said it can only be fulfilled, it can only be fruitful when we allow His presence. That's important that we get that. We have to be in Him. Abide in me, He says. Live in me. Allow this attachment when we allow His presence. So what is the truth? If we look that word up, by definition, we see that the truth is facts corresponding with actual events or happenings, sincerity or honesty. But we live in a time of great manipulation, right? We live in a time to where what you see might not be true. We live in a time to where what you see might not be exactly what it is that's being seen. I guess I'm going to get some help. But we see here, we understand what we see is not always what it appears to be. So truth as presented in many ways is often surrounded with question marks. And we see that more and more and more in the world today. But if we go back to the consistency of God and understanding what that relationship looks like, God tells us, even from the time of Malachi, it says, I am the Lord and I change not. In other words, he said, if I am the truth today, I'm the truth tomorrow. If I was the truth yesterday, I'll be the truth in a week. And we can hold on to that consistency when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the bread of life. I am the door. I am the light of the world. I am the true vine. We realize through that we can rely on Him. We can lean on Him. We can know that He is there. He is what we need to know. He is the truth. He is where we can hold on to and not worry and not doubt. We don't have to wonder, well, is that real? Is that true? Is that what? God is clear about those things. When Jesus says, I am, we can be assured that whatever follows that statement, door, light, bread, whatever the case, it's a fact. And He can always back it up. It's not just words. Many people today make claims about this or that, right? But it's just words. It can't be backed up, whether it's through evidence or whether it's through facts or whatever the case. We were even talking about that this morning sometimes in our testimony and our character and our witness. Well, I'm a member down at West Fayetteville, or I'm this or I'm that, or but the life has no reflection of any of those things. We make a lot of proclamations today, but there's nothing to back it up. When Jesus says, I am, there's proof. When He says, I am, there's facts there. There's things to couple with that. So what is truth? Jesus. That's truth. That's what we can hold on to. That's what we can wrap things around. When we read these words, I am the true vine, we begin to see this clear reference here, this clear understanding of relationship. This is what it's all about, friends. This is how it all works. So how are these things connected? How is this relationship and life and truth and vine and all this? How does it come together? Well, we consider, if you will, the picture that again we're looking at here of the vine. We'll just use grapes as our reference because that picture's there. So that'll be our example. The vine produces fruit, right? And that fruit appears on what? The branches of the vine. As long as the branch is attached to the vine, it's getting the nutrition, it's getting the life source into it. And so as long as they remain, it continues to produce. But if you separate the two, what happens? Life ceases. It doesn't continue to produce anymore. It doesn't continue to be tangible anymore. So if we look, again, for illustrative purposes, you go to the produce section of your favorite grocery store, whatever it may be, Harris Teeter, Food Lion, Walmart, it doesn't matter, wherever it is that you go. And you go into that produce section, everything there came from a branch or a stem or some type of life-giving source. But once it is harvested, once it's been taken from that, it has a what? A limited shelf life. It's only going to last but so long, and then it's going to expire, and it won't be any good, and it gets tossed away, or it's rotten and it's no good. It can't be placed in a useful recipe. It might even make you sick because it's no good anymore because it doesn't have life being poured into it anymore. Therefore, it's not a valuable resource, so it's discarded. Well, how does that relate to our life with Christ? How does that relate to our relationship with Christ? He says here, I am the true vine. I am what you need. And abide in me, be as long as the branch and the vine are attached, you will get those resources. You will get that nutrition, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, all those things. But if you separate yourself, if you take yourself off of that, then your life source discontinues. Does that make sense? When we think, well, yeah, if a power source, the cord, as long as it's plugged into the socket, it works. You take it out and walk around with it and you wonder why the light's not working. We do that sometimes because, well, my life's so upside down and nothing. But what is our power source? What is our life source? Where is our vine? Are we attached or are we detached? Jesus says He is the true vine. He is our real life source. He gives us life. He sustains that life. He guides our life as long as the branch remains attached. And when the branch is attached, we receive that nutrition. So, well, wait a minute, Pastor. It sounds like you're saying there's conditions. Yeah, there is. Because that's what he says. That's the beauty and the clarity of Scripture and when the words of Christ. How do relationships work? Now, no, we're not going to go into a marriage conference. But okay, how do relationships work? Let's use marriage for example. If we live in two separate places, if we never speak to one another, have no contact, no visits, is it the paper from a court that says that we're married that creates the marriage? Or is it the bond of the heart? Where's the connectivity there? Where's the life source there? If that bond is broken, if that branch is separate from the vine, then the branch doesn't receive the benefit of the vine. Therefore, that connection doesn't remain. Think of it that way. When the two aren't together, it doesn't work. It doesn't remain the same, and it doesn't produce the same results. So we get that. We understand that when we put it in a clarifying thing like that, and whether it's a marriage or a friendship or whatever the case. So we understand that. So why then, why would we expect that if we separate ourselves from our branch, if we separate ourselves from our true vine, in other words, if he says he's the true vine, that means there's what? Some false ones. Think about that. He's saying if we're not attached to the true vine, because the false ones don't give, they take. What did he say the enemy came to do? Steal, kill, and destroy. The enemy gives nothing. He only takes away. But if we don't grasp the concept that our two must remain united, the vine and the branch, and we can't be attached to false things that take away. If we separate that, how can we expect to continue in the same benefit? That's what he's saying here. Abide in me. Live in me. Live with me. Live in the understanding of what I give to you. But also live with the understanding that if you don't participate in that, you don't allow your branch to remain attached to the vine, then something changes. Life and relationship are all about what feeds them. Do we agree with that today? Life and relationship is all about what feeds them. And I'm not just talking about pork chops and hamburgers and green beans, but rather what impacts our life. What do we have going on that impacts our life, that makes a difference, that makes us think, that makes us tick, that makes us react? All that. What are we allowing to influence us? You know, I meet with, counsel, talk to a lot of different people, whether in person, online, whatever the case. And over the last several years, we've seen a great change in society. Would we agree with that today? Not always necessarily in the better way, but we've seen a lot. But what I have seen, though, is those who have been just inundated and overwhelmed by the negativity that just pours out on the TV, whether it's the news or whatever the case. We see all these different things. And I've seen the change that this has brought about. Friends, the things that feed our lives, the things that impact our lives, it matters. It absolutely matters. The things that influence us, the people that influence us are vital roles that we should never allow just anything to fill. You know, we should never just allow anything to fill. And again, I've used this reference before, but it's like when there's a hole in the road, you got to put the right substance in there or it just keeps washing out, right? You got to put the right thing in there. It's vital what we allow to influence and impact our life. Jesus said that he is the true vine. In other words, the vine which provides everything, and it's only found in him. It's only found in him. There's one source. There's one place. You don't have to look anywhere else. Now, from the human perspective, and clearly only this way, through the human eyes, one might say, well, that sounds kind of arrogant. You're saying, I'm the answer, I'm the one. That may sound a little that may sound unfair. I mean, we need more than one choice because we don't like to do it that way. We need another choice. We need another opportunity. We want more flavors and colors. And when it comes to hats and shoes and ice cream flavors, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But the truth does not fall into that category. See, we can't have your truth and my truth and his truth and her truth, because then it's kind of like when I used to go in domestic violence situations. I would ask the two parties that were involved, I want all three sides of the story. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, I want yours, and I want yours, and then I want the truth. Because everybody's going to have a different story, right? Nobody's going to tell it the same way, because obviously I want to skew it toward my favor. That's like 5 witnesses to a wreck. They're all going to have a different story. We have to get back to our source of the truth. Jesus says if we want the truth, then we have to be attached to Him, because He is the truth. He is our true vine. He is the real source of everything. And if that's to be the case, and we understand that, then wouldn't it make sense if we go to the one who created it all? Wouldn't it make sense to go to the one who actually knows? Jesus says, I, singular, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Now, in some versions it says, my Father is the husbandman. Other versions say, my Father is the farmer. But at the end of the day, they all mean the same thing. God planted the seed. Therefore, if God planted the seed, is it not fair, is it not understandable that God has the rightful expectation of what it produces? That makes sense, right? If I plant green bean seed today, then I have a rightful expectation it's going to grow green beans and not tomatoes or something horrible, right? That's a personal thing. But we understand God is saying it is fair because I created you in my image. So the rightful expectation that you act the way that I created you to act, that makes sense, right? I mean, it's just really not that hard to figure out when we look at it from the perspective of the truth. So what are we to produce? What is this fruit that Jesus speaks of? Well, we did an extensive study for several weeks, maybe even over into a couple of months, on our Wednesday night Bible study, which I encourage anybody to come to. We'd love to have you, on the fruit of the Spirit. And when we looked at that, we looked at those things as literal, as visible, because love you can see when it's real. And joy you can see when it's real. Forgiveness and kindness and on so and on. So that's what God created us to produce, because that's who He is, right? That's the clarity of that. He shows those things. But He's saying apart from the true vine, apart from our life source, apart from what pours into us, that doesn't happen. You won't do it on your own. Because by nature, what are we? Selfish. We want it our way, right? I mean, my two great little guys that were here this morning, I heard one of them yesterday say the magic word that all kids say, mine. I mean, they know that, and they learn it. They don't have to be taught that. It's just there. That's just, we struggle with that by nature. If we're trying to gain our life, if we're trying to gain our life source from other things, from other places, from other situations, and we attempt to find a new vine, it will never be the true vine. Can we grab that today? If we're trying to attach ourselves, graft ourselves, if you will, into something different, it will never be the true vine, ever. As the farmer, as the owner of the vineyard, God has a rightful expectation that we produce from the seeds He planted. That just is the way that it works. If we look back at our text in verse 2, it says, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, He prunes that it may bear more. Every branch in me, that's the key word in that particular passage. In, meaning attached, drawing from the life source that is provided. He says, that does not bear fruit, He takes away. Now think of today. Think of today and the way things work. Well, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what the expectation is, but I'm not going to. I want to do it my way. God will just have to accept it. He'll just have to be okay with the way that I do things. No, actually He doesn't. He says here, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away. Friends, there are consequences. This is not about gloom and doom. This is not about being mean or scaring somebody to death. But we need to understand this journey that we call life. One day, and again, not being morbid, but one day it comes to an end. What we did will matter. How we did it will matter, because we will stand before a holy God who will not, unlike officials and different ones here, that will accept excuses. It just won't happen. That's not the way that it's going to work. And so we see the key word here is in. We can't expect the benefit if we refuse to take part. We all, and we're enjoying it even right now as we sit here, we all enjoy the benefits of electricity. We like the lights. We like the air conditioning when it's 100 degrees outside. We like the heat in the wintertime. We like the comfort and the convenience that it brings. And the company, they are glad to provide all of that. But one day we decide, well, I'm going to pay the bill anymore. Guess what happens? You'll be in the dark. That's how it works. Oh, I'm just going to do it my way now. Well, they're still able and glad to happy to provide you the service, but it comes with a consequence. It comes with a expectation that you participate. When we walk away from the light and willfully walk into the dark, we cannot rightfully expect for our path to always be clear and bright. That's not how it works, folks. God owns the vineyard. He gets say over what is produced, which also says He gets say over the benefits and who does or does not receive them. Does that make sense? When we think about the broadness and the grace and the mercy and the love of God is, I've given it to everybody. You can all have it. But here's how it works. You know, it's like buying one of those things that's got to have batteries in it. And you don't ever put the batteries in it. Well, it don't work. Well, actually it does. You just aren't operating it the way that it was made to do. Everything works the way that God says. It's like getting mad when you didn't win the lottery last night when they drew for the 500 million or whatever it was. And in your anger, you've lost sight of the fact you never bought a ticket. You know, you can't get upset about what you didn't participate in. And that's what God is trying to say. Abide in me, and you'll get these benefits. This will be the provision that is given. The owner of the light company, again, we go back to that. He provides the service to anyone who signs up. The scripture says clearly, all who call upon the name of Jesus, all who believes that He is who He says He is, that God raised Him on the third day, it says clearly, shall be saved. 3 words. Very clear, right? Very clear. The opportunity has been provided. The owner of the light company provides the service to anybody who signs up. And they rightfully expect when you sign that deal that you will pay for that service to maintain the service. No one argues with that. We all understand, well, that's a contract, that's a business deal, whatever the case. However, if we look around us and we understand the way that things kind of are in today, many, and I don't like the stereotype, but I would just use the word many, they want to live like hell. but they want to keep the benefits of God. That's not how it works. Because one's not a reflection of the other. It's not how it works. Jesus goes on and he says, every branch that bears fruit, he prunes that it bears more. How many of us would agree with this? Learning moments sometimes hurt. They aren't always fun. Learning moments can be pretty difficult sometimes. To understand that your thumb hurts when you hit it with the hammer, guess what has to happen? We don't like that. We don't like it, and we remember some maybe not so nice words in those moments. But the fact of the matter is, you learn, okay, those two things coupled together aren't pleasurable. They aren't good. Sometimes learning moments hurt. They can be difficult. But then when we grasp that on the other side of that learning moment, we all not only now we know more, but we're able to do more. And as we're able to do more, then we're able to get closer to being who God called us to be, which also allows us to be a blessing to others. Because if we didn't know, we couldn't grow. Amen? And so when we look at pruning trees and flowers and whatever the case, we do that to keep them healthy. We do that to keep them and allow them to bear more fruit or apples or whatever they're doing, flowers. There are times in our life that we need to be pruned. Not be a prune, but to be pruned. There's two different things there. You'll get that in a minute. But when we think about what is being said here, there are times in our lives that something is no longer needed. But wait a minute, Pastor, we've always done that. But are you doing it now? Is it beneficial now, or is it just sitting there drawing dust? Is it producing anything? Do we use it anymore? Is it helpful? Well, no. And I know it's just, but Grandma gave that, 40 years ago or 100 years ago. I understand that. And God bless Grandma. But we're not using that anymore. There are times that God needs us to be pruned to get things out of the way so better things can take place, right? Because remember this, it is not the memory being replaced. It's causing new life to be born. That's important. The memory will always be, whatever that is, we can hold on to that. But producing that new life, producing that new opportunity is vital to continued forward movement, right? If the apple tree is only harvested once and it never makes another apple, then it really is just an ornament in the yard. It doesn't accomplish anything if that's what it's there for. Sometimes things have to move. There comes a time that everything needs a change. If you're a sports fan, I'm just using a couple of references. There comes a time when there's a needed change. Tom Brady cannot be and should not be in the Super Bowl at 100 years old. Okay? And you may not be or not or fan, okay? I'm not. But whatever the case, doesn't matter. You can appreciate the athleticism. You can appreciate the whatever. But there's a time that it's done. There's a time that it's done. I seen a 65-year-old man the other night that I personally know attempting to do a ridiculous move in a professional wrestling match. 65, he shouldn't have been in there to start with. I'll just soon be 54. I shouldn't be in there because that time has passed. But 65, and he dove off a ladder and likely killed himself. There's a time that it needs to move on. Muhammad Ali, of course, he's going on, but he should not be world champion at 96. The shuffle at that point turns into a little bit different, right? I mean, we can, that's different. But we need to understand. We need to understand there's a time, things in our life that keep us from growing ultimately hinder us from being a help to others. This is what Jesus is talking about. If you're in me, if you're abiding in me, I'm able to pour into you. Therefore, you're able to continue to produce. And then there comes a point in time I'll need to prune it back so you can produce even more, that you can make things even better, because I don't want you to get stagnant. I don't want you to stay in the same place. And I don't want you to get complacent. I don't want you to have one harvest and it's over. I want you to keep going. I want you to keep doing things, but you have to remain in me. That's vital that we understand it. If we are going and doing as God asks us, He oftentimes prunes us to keep us healthy so we continue to produce the crop, the yield as time goes by. And as we get a little older, a little more seasoned, the yield may change over time. The crop may change over time. But as long as we remain attached to our true vine, we have the ability to please God. Think about that. Think about that. Well, Pastor, I only talked to one person this year about Jesus. That's one more person going to heaven. It's not about the number. It's not about the quantity as much as it is the quality, right? And that's what God is looking for. Are you willing to do what I ask you to do? Are you willing to stay in me, abide in me? Because as the branch, we alone cannot bear the fruit. Think about that. It takes the two together. Alone, singularly, it doesn't work. So Jesus says, abide in me. This talks of, when he's saying bear fruit, this is good fruit. We are the branches. What does that mean? We are a product of the vine we are attached to. Think about that. We are a product of the vine we are attached to. We're either producing the fruit of God or the fruit of the world. Which one? There's no gray area. It's one or the other. Jesus says, when you abide in me, unless you abide in me, you cannot bear fruit. In other words, the fruit that pleases God. Well, that makes sense when we consider our life source. In other words, our what or who produces the stuff that makes us go. Again, to get back to what impacts our life, what influences our life, what is being poured into our life. The answer to that question of what or who provides the stuff that makes me go, the answer to that question is vital. Vital. You know, if it's the headlines, you know, off the Weekly World News or the National Enquirer, if that's what gets your giddy up and go, buddy, we got a problem. Because that's not based on facts. If we understand what Jesus is saying here, I am the true vine. I'm where you can get the resources that you need. The answer matters. We see the vital points as we begin to wrap this up of this I am. I am the true vine. Again, this means there are false vines. There are those that look bright and green. There's those that look healthy, but they exude poison. And they will kill you. They will make you sick. They will damage your witness. They will damage your testimony. Jesus says, I am the true vine. There are many, many false ones available. But Jesus says that without him, we can do nothing. Is that literal? I mean, is he speaking that all you can do is just lay in the floor and you can't move, or just sit in a chair and not? No, but what he's saying is if we are determined, or we are willfully separating ourselves or refuse the vine that he has offered, in other words, we operate alone. He's saying we have no life source. We have no ability to produce fruit, and so therefore our efforts are fruitless and they are vain, and they don't please God because he's not involved. That makes sense, right? The one who produces the crop, the one who plants the crop, if that crop produces something that has nothing to do with what was produced or planted, that farmer has the right to say, well, what in the world happened? That's what he's trying to get us to understand. Many today, they want the benefit of God, but have no relationship. No relationship. We see many in that position of, well, I know God, I believe in God. So does the devil. I don't mean that to be funny. The devil knows who God is. The devil believes in God, but it doesn't change his eternity. This is all about relationship, friends. The combining, the joining, the in me, if you will. That's what he's speaking of when he says, when you abide in me. If you're invited to a party, here's my illustration. If you're invited to a party, you can't get mad that everybody who went had a good time, but you decided not to go. You decided not to go. But I wanted to have a good time too. You could have, but you said no. That's all God's saying. The opportunity's there. The invitation has been given. The clarity is there. Jesus said, if anyone does not abide in me, that means choice. I choose not to. But the invitation is still there. I'm not accepting it. It says he is cast out as a branch and is withered. Oh, but that sounds so mean. That sounds so harsh. I mean, well, why would God do that? If you have a limb on a tree in your yard and that limb is dead, it's no longer producing anything. It's rotten and it's causing harm to the rest of that tree and ultimately will kill that tree. What do? You cut it off, right? It's got to go. It can't stay there because it's draining the valuable life source from the rest of that tree. If on our body, and again, God forbid, but we have a part that no longer works, and it's harming the rest of us. Maybe through it's cancer, maybe through it's something else, and it's harming the rest of you and may take your life. What happens? It's got to go. No, we don't like that idea, but that's just the way that it works. God is the owner. God is the creator. He is the farmer. He owns the vineyard. He says, I am the true vine, and he gets to say that. He gets to say, I am the true vine. The importance of what we attach ourselves to, friends, it is vital for this journey we call life. If we are attached, if we are receiving our life source from him, what we produce is a reflection of that relationship. That's why he says, those in me who don't bear fruit. Friends, it costs us nothing to be kind to someone. Nothing. It actually brings us freedom to forgive someone. We celebrate freedom in the birth of a nation and all these great things, but in our own spirit, are we free when we're holding on to that burden of unforgiveness? No. We have to let that go. The benefit of having our vine attached and our branch attached to this true vine is amazing. So how is your produce section today? Think about that for a minute. Are we producing the things that God has said for us to do? Do others see Jesus? Do others see love and joy and peace and kindness? And is that what they see? Or do they see a dried up old prune withering away up in the corner that continues to refuse the invitation from the vine? There's really no in between. So as the old song would ask, do you know him today? I love these old words. Without him, I could do nothing. Without him, I'd surely fail. Without him, I would be drifting like a ship without a sail. Without him, I would be dying. Without him, I'd be enslaved. Without him, life would be worthless. But with Jesus, thank God I'm saved. If you know it, sing it with me. Jesus, oh Jesus, do you know him today? Please don't turn him away. Oh Jesus, my Jesus, without him, how lost I would be. Is the vine and your branch attached today, friends?